Hello everyone, it's Glenda and welcome back to Creative Grandma. It's Stitch of the Week time and this week's stitch is number 29. It's called the Easy Suzette or otherwise Thicket stitch. It's a 1-row repeat. It's very easy for beginners and it's a wonderful pattern if you're more experienced and you just want something really super easy to make. It's lightly textured. It's a gorgeous pattern for maybe a cardigan, dishcloths, baby sweaters, baby afghans, anything you can think of. It's just a wonderful pattern. So this is my first sample here, and this sample was made using that new Premier Everyday DK Stripes. This is a limited release yarn. Once it's gone, it's gone. So I'm hoping that some of my subscribers and viewers are able to get their chance to get some of this yarn. It just works up so beautifully. It's a 3 lightweight yarn and it is machine wash and tumble dry. So very nice yarn. This is the Peach Melba color number 2007-13. So when you look at the skein of yarn, sometimes you just don't know how it works up. So this is how that color works up. So that's my first sample. My second sample, a little hard to see on my white background, but this was made using just the color plain white. So let me get my hands under this so you can see it a little bit better. Just a beautiful, delicate stitch pattern. This sample here was made using the new Premier Basic DK. If you like working with those lightweight yarns, this is a number 3 lightweight. Oh, it's so very soft to the touch, so very affordable. This is color number 1142-01 white. So very pretty, would make a very classic design when you just use that solid white color. Sample number 3, I just used the Premier Basic DK, again, 3 lightweight yarn in a mixture of colors, changing colors every row using the pink, yellow, blue, and white. Just an amazing design. And I think this, you can see a little bit better the stitch pattern where one row angles towards the right and then the next row angles towards the left. Just such a pretty design. So I do have a 4th sample. This is the baby Afghan that I showed you the other day that I started. It's coming along pretty well. You can see how pretty this yarn works up. This is the stitch that you're going to learn today. And again, it just shows you every design can look completely different even though you're doing the same stitch pattern just from the yarn you're using. So this sample here I showed you the other day was made also with that Everyday DK striped limited release yarn. And this is the color 2007-05 stream. So I'll be bringing this crochet tutorial to you when the Afghan is finished. So before we get started on the stitch of the week, I just wanted to show you these basic size charts. If you haven't seen the video where I show these charts, it's an excellent resource tool that you can use if you don't know what size certain blankets should be. So if you wanted to make an Afghan, then these charts are geared towards motifs and granny squares, but it also lists what size you should make your Afghan for what size bed you're looking for. So say for instance, here's a twin bed. It gives you the measurements of a twin bed and then gives you suggestions for what size to make your Afghan. That way you know when you go to make your starting chain that you would need a starting chain that measures at least 48 inches across. Now these are just guidelines. You don't have to make them this size, but it's a good reference to know about where to start. And it starts clear down to a preemie pet size Afghan, clear up to a king size bed. It's 6 pages of wonderful information and they're available free of charge. Just click that link, go to the website, and you can download it right to your computer. Now with this stitch pattern, you just need to chain an even number of chains to get started. So it would be like say 2, 4, 6, 8. You just chain an even number of chains. Now for all the samples I showed you today, I used a size H8 or 5mm crochet hook, and it just made the perfect gauge, the perfect drape for this yarn. So for today's stitch tutorial, I am going to be using the Everyday DK Stripes in that beautiful peach Melba, and I'm using a size H8 or 5mm crochet hook. So grab your yarn, grab your hook. Now if you're using a different yarn, then just look on your yarn label and it will tell you the recommended hook size to use for today's sample. So let's get started. I have my yarn attached to my hook and I just used a double knot. So for today, we're just making a small sample because this stitch pattern is so easy. I'm just going to start with the chain of 12. You're going to yarn over and pull it through the loop on your hook. This creates your first chain. The loop on your hook does not count as a chain. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. For row 1, you're going to skip that first chain, insert into the next chain, which is the second chain from your hook, and work a single crochet. Yarn over, pull through that chain. You have 2 loops. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops on your hook. Now we're going to make a double crochet into that same chain. Yarn over, insert back into that same chain, yarn over, pull back through that chain. You have 3 loops. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops only, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So now we're going to start our repeat. So if you need help, you just click back on the video to where I say this is the start of the repeat and work until I say this is the end of the repeat. You're going to skip the next chain, insert into the next chain, work a single crochet. Yarn over, insert back into that same chain and work a double crochet. So you're working 2 stitches into that same chain, a single crochet and a double crochet. And that is the end of the repeat. So I'm going to work it right across our little sample with you. You're going to skip the next chain, single crochet into the next chain, and then double crochet into that same chain. And that is the end of the repeat. Skip the next chain, insert into the next chain, work a single crochet, yarn over, insert back into that same chain, work your double crochet. And you can see how our little pattern is starting to form. Skip the next chain, insert into the next chain, work a single crochet, yarn over, insert back into that same chain, work a double crochet. And that is the end of the repeat. And you want to work this repeat across to the last 2 chains. So if you're working on a larger project, say an afghan, then you would continue until you only have 2 chains remaining. So when you get to the last 2 chains, you're going to skip the next chain and you're only going to work a single crochet into that last chain. Just 1 stitch in the last chain. So now if you're new to crocheting, I always advise my newbies to put a stitch marker in the last stitch and come back and put a stitch marker in this first single crochet you made. That way when you're going back and forth and working this pattern, that stitch marker is going to tell you that this will be the first stitch when you come back in the next row, and this will be your last stitch when you're coming across again. Row 1 is finished, and now we're going to go ahead and start row 2. For row 2, which will be our repeat row, you're going to chain 1 and you're going to turn your work. You're going to skip the beginning chain 1. You're going to insert right underneath the top 2 loops of that first stitch, and if you're not sure, just turn your work and you can see the top of those stitches. Insert into that very first stitch, work a single crochet, yarn over, insert back into that same beginning stitch and work a double crochet. You're always starting each row with a single crochet and a double crochet into that first single crochet stitch. Now we're going to start our repeat. You're going to skip the next stitch, which is a double crochet. And again, if you're not sure, turn your work. You're going to skip this next stitch, insert into the next stitch, which is the single crochet stitch, work a single crochet, yarn over, insert back into that same stitch, work a double crochet. Skip the next stitch, insert into the next stitch, again that will be a single crochet, work a single crochet, and then double crochet back into that same stitch. And that is the end of the repeat. So now you're just going to keep working across your row. You're going to skip the next stitch, which is that double crochet stitch, and you're going to insert into the next stitch, which is a single crochet. You're going to insert into the single crochet, work a single crochet, and then a double crochet into that same stitch. And that is the end of the repeat. So you're going to continue across to the last 2 stitches. So we have one more repeat to go. Skip the next double crochet, insert into the next single crochet, work a single crochet, and then a double crochet all into that same stitch. And now when you look at your work, you'll notice that you have a double crochet and you have your ending single crochet. Now that ending single crochet likes to kind of dip down a little, so that's why if you're new, it's very important to use those stitch markers. Then you can clearly see you have 2 stitches. We're going to skip the next double crochet and you're going to insert into that ending single crochet. Make sure you're going under both of those top 2 loops, work a single crochet. And you always end the row with a single crochet. So now it's time to move those stitch markers up, mark that last stitch, and then mark your first stitch of row 2, and then that helps you when you're doing the next row. So row 2 is finished. So now I'm just going to work it one more time with you, and then that way you can continue and practice until you're comfortable with the stitch. So let's go ahead and repeat row 2 again. You're going to chain 1 and you're going to turn your work. You're going to skip that beginning chain 1, insert into that first single crochet stitch, work a single crochet, and then double crochet into that same beginning stitch. And again, remember, you're always starting with a single crochet and a double crochet to start each row in that first stitch. Skip the next stitch, insert into the next stitch, work a single crochet, and double crochet into that same stitch. Skip the next stitch, insert into the next stitch, work a single crochet, and then double crochet back into that same stitch. So both stitches, your single crochet and your double crochet, are both worked into that same stitch. Skip the next stitch, insert into the next stitch, work your single crochet, and then double crochet back into that same stitch. And you're going to repeat this across to your last 2 stitches. So we have one more repeat to go. You're going to skip the next stitch, insert into the next stitch, work a single crochet, and then double crochet back into that same stitch. So now when you look at your work, you're going to have 2 stitches remaining, a double crochet and a single crochet. You're going to skip that next stitch, insert into the very last stitch, going under both of those top 2 loops, work a single crochet. And that is all there is to doing the Suzette or the Thicket stitch. Very easy pattern. So to keep practicing, you're just going to repeat row 2 over and over until you get it to the size you want. So thank you everyone for stopping by today and crocheting with me. I want to remind everyone I will have links to this wonderful Premier yarn in the description box, and I'll also have a link to those basic size charts, which is an excellent tool for telling you what size those Afghans should be. And I'll also have a link directly to my Stitch of the Week page on creativegrandma.net. Now remember, all my Stitch of the Week patterns are free. You can go to the website, you can download one, you can download them all. I suggest get yourself a binder, get some of those sheet protectors, print out those patterns and start yourself a little stitch library. That way, when you want to make a project, you can just browse through that notebook and you can just pick a pattern at your fingertips and start learning some of these stitches. So thank you everybody again for coming by and crocheting with me today. So until next time, stay inspired and happy crocheting, everyone.